Welcome to Viva La Visionary, the podcast that celebrates the innovative ideas and mindsets of entrepreneurs and visionaries. Join your host, Coach Bob Schittefeld, as he dives into inspiring stories and practical insights from trailblazers who are changing the game. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned leader, this show is your source for motivation and creativity. Let's embark on this exciting journey together.
Hi there, Coach Bob Schittefeld here, founder of the Visionary Forum and host for Viva La Visionary, celebrating and elevating. And it's talking with visionaries, visionaries unleashing visionaries. And it's not just visionaries in our business, but it's visionary in life and the visionary spirit. Very excited to have Rob Dube here today. Rob, how are you?
I'm great. Viva La Visionary, baby. Let's go.
All right. And that's all we need to know. Thanks for coming.
What a name.
So glad to have you, Rob. We've known each other at least 20 years. It's probably 25 years. And we've gone through a lot together, both with our forums and EO and mountain retreats and integrators and visionaries and everything. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So first, give me a couple minute update. I know a lot of things that you're working on, but so what are you focused on now as the visionary?
As the visionary today, I am the visionary for the 10 Disciplines company.
Right.
So it's a group coaching program that we bring in driven entrepreneurs and teach them these very valuable 10 disciplines that help create time in their life and space in their mind so they can do the inner work that is so important to really helping them free their entrepreneurial spirit.
Love it. I love it. And there's a lot of us working on similar things because it's not about first of all, it's not just about work. It's about life and spirit. And it's not just about the seat of the visionary. It's the person, as I mentioned. So how is that coming along? Are people looking for it? Are they receiving it? Because it's very much needed in the world.
Yeah, our group coaching program has been really well received. We ask an anonymous ranking at the end of each session, and we're in the high 9s for every single session. We've been running it now for 3 years, and we have additional coach who runs it, and it's been really exciting to see the growth and just to see the impact that it's making on everyone.
Well, it's interesting. I've said for a long time that we visionaries are the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. And so
that's true.
So we need some work and some guidance, which I'm client number one. So I've known you for a long time. And actually, I'm just recalling you actually sat on my panel at the EOS conference 5 or 6 years ago so the title was, "So You Work for a Visionary, Sorry to Hear That." And it was harnessing the power and energy of the visionary. And when you were on there, and I wanted you on there because you are an amazing integrator. So explain that you were an integrator and then you stepped out of that role and then you had your own and still have your own retreat that you do. And I want to hear about that and your Do Nothing book. And now you're a visionary. So explain that evolution from integrator to visionary, because I know that's not typical.
Well, I think, one of the things that happened early on in my first business, which is called imageOne, it's still around and I still own it with my same business partner. His name is Joel. You know Joel, of course, Joel Perlman. Mm-hmm. And when we first started implementing EOS, and this whole idea of visionary integrator came into the stratosphere, someone had to be the visionary and someone had to be the integrator.
Lucky you.
I picked the integrator card.
Right.
So, but I worked the best I could for a number of years as the integrator at imageOne. Frankly, it was really a struggle. And I shared with my business partner, who was the visionary, for many years, that I'm the wrong person for this job. And it's really apparent in many, many ways.
Right.
And thankfully, we at some point decided, we need to bring somebody in. And then the two of us were co-visionaries for a period of time until we both stepped out of the business.
Right. So do you feel, because I know you were a good visionary, you may not have liked it. And I know Gino says it's about 5% of us that are both visionaries and integrators. So do you feel like you were a good integrator? I mean, because I know you were, or you just didn't like it?
Yeah, and you said you felt I was a good visionary, but I think you meant
Oh, I'm
integrator.
sorry. I meant to say
Yeah, no,
integrator.
that's
Yes.
okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I think I was good,
Yeah.
but I think it's better to be great.
No, I get it, but that's what a lot of people, it's like Rob's good at it, give it to him, and
Yeah,
you're like, yeah,
yeah,
I'm good at it, and someone's got to do it. So again, and I
yeah.
pointed many people to you with your permission and with your invitation to come watch your L10s and to learn how you help to implement EOS, which is not easy to do. So again, I
Yeah.
commend you for that.
No, I
So,
appreciate that because that's probably not something I think a ton about. But one thing I did have a strength is one of my strengths is when I see a system like EOS and others, like Great Game of Business was another one that we implemented at the company. I can somehow wrap my brain around it and I'm able to implement it like exactly as, designed. You give me the right system, I'll implement it.
well, it's interesting because that's why I didn't think, and I know you well, that you were a visionary. And again, it's not you are a visionary or not, but
Yeah.
because you listen so well and you ask such great questions and you are thoughtful, which is not typical for most visionaries.
Thank you.
But I love having conversations because you really, not many people. Maybe I don't allow many people to get to help me to slow down and ask me a question. It's like, wow, I never really thought about that. So you are amazing, inquirer.
Thanks, bud.
So now you're a visionary. So what is the role of the visionary in your opinion? In
Well,
in our seat. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought about that actually because it's such a great question. And so the first thing that I came up with, because I was thinking about myself and my own experiences, was to ensure that the vision for the company is very clear and that everyone understands it and is hearing it regularly.
Right,
Because I think one thing as visionaries we do is we have the dream, but we're walking around with the dream and it's in our mind, and everyone else is just grinding it out at the company and they don't remember the dream
right,
because we're not consistently sharing it with them. So, I had a system in imageOne that ensured that I was sharing the vision, at least every month with the
right,
company and having them really close their eyes and imagine that they could see it. The other thing, for me was culture. And
right,
that was really important. I always took the philosophy that I wanted to care for the totality of our team members' lives and what were the things that we could do to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And it also really spoke to my soul to do that anyway.
right,
And so, that was a big component for me. And then creativity, we're faced with issues all the time as visionaries and we just have creative minds. Like we're excited to kind of figure it out, like, okay, wait, I have an idea, what if we did this, what if we tried that,
right,
things of that nature. So that was my perspective. But I was, as I was thinking about it, I typed in, some, like, I wanted to get some other opinions, I guess. And so I Googled your question and Jeff Bezos came up. And
right.
I thought his answer was really good. So it was my favorite one. So I wanted to share that with
Yeah,
you as
please.
well. And I think it has to do a little bit with what stage you're at as a company, but I could be wrong about that. But Bezos said, identify big ideas, make sure that you're very tough, enforce strong execution of those ideas, and then grow the next generation of leaders.
Love it.
And I think the reason that resonated with me of all the different things that I saw is we all get the big ideas. That's exciting.
Right,
Everyone listening understands that. But tough execution, now that's another story.
right,
So to use myself as an example, I didn't love conflict. I still
right,
don't. And I don't like going after people and being really hard on,
right,
things of that nature. So that was not a strength of mine. And then, growing the next generation of leaders, that was something that was important to me as my business got more mature. And I was always thinking, like, something could happen to me. Like if something does, who's replacing me? Who's replacing that person? What if that person left, et cetera? So we tried to put some things in place to the best of our ability to help grow the next generation of leaders in the company.
right. So I love that definition, and I agree with all of it, except like you mentioned, the tough execution. It's a bit of a generalization and a stereotype, but most visionaries are not good at conflict or managing or driving accountability. And that's the beauty of something like EOS, though, is that Okay, I had this great idea. Okay, I'm out of here. Go, and that's
Take
where
care.
the integrator, and again, they may not always like it, but they are better at, seeing on a day to day or week to week basis, are they doing what needs to get done? Are they on track? Are they keeping the priorities, which I can't stand?
Yeah.
And that's where, again, I think that's something that I don't know if that's always the role of the visionary. Now, to not demand it, but really kind of expect it and make sure somebody is holding the accountability.
Right, right. The thing I got thinking about with this one, and because it's Bezos, and so
Yeah.
obviously, he's built the most successful company, or one of them in the world, whatever. And so I was thinking, I wonder what Bob would think about this. And that was, are there certain people like a Bezos who is such an amazing dreamer and really can see it clearly, but also has this really unique ability to be, just very strong at execution.
Right.
And that is what all of a sudden separates the, maybe the smaller entrepreneur companies
Right.
from, the types that become the Amazons of the world. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I definitely think so. I mean, it's an evolution. We call it the visionary journey, which is, as Joseph Campbell says, we love that thrill and the call to adventure. And we have that courage to go in and we see someone's got a problem. We help them identify the problem. We come up with a solution, we sell it, and then we have to deliver it. And it's like, And so, but I think it's a great point is there's an evolution because then you have the second stage entrepreneurs or visionaries, which could be in your own business or another business. That to me, that first stage is getting above a solopreneur to a business of 2 to 20 million and it's running. But to really take it to the next level, that leader to me has to love business and want to learn that. And that's a different stage. That's not me. And so even in the visionary forum where we get our membership group, it's people who hit the ceiling of complexity and are kind of stressed and their business is stressed. They bring in a system like EOS, they bring in the people and create the processes. Then we're supposed to let go of the vine, but a lot of us, and that's to delegate and elevate and trust. But a lot of us visionaries don't know how to do that if we don't know what life beyond the vine is. And life beyond the vine might be, how do we 10x this company? And I personally, I want to have more impact, but I don't really want to run a big business.
Right.
And so I want to be the visionary, but I ultimately, as my business is growing, I want actually a CEO and I'm the visionary, or I go above the line into the owner's box, but I just want to be the visionary. So I think to answer your question, I think that there are some people, and I have people that are in the visionary forum that like Gathering of Titans. Is that, the old, what was it used to be called? That we went to years ago. It was at MIT. Now it's at Princeton.
Oh yeah, Birthing of Giants.
So right, so it was Birthing of Giants. I think maybe it's still called that. And actually, one of our members runs that, and his thing is that next stage. He's like, so from your group of visionaries, it's probably 10-20% that are like, I want to grow this business, and that is a huge part of my life. Whereas some of us visionaries are like, okay, business is part of my life. It's not my sole thing. Now, I think a lot of us have been so entrenched to make payroll and that we're stressed. We're trying to prove ourselves. It becomes our whole life, which maybe isn't what we want. Exactly. So yeah, I think there's different people that want to run $100 million company and others that just want to be the visionary.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And, I'm using myself as an example. I don't even want to be the visionary. I've realized in my life, I enjoy being in the owner's box, to use that terminology, or, a shareholder on a board or whatever the case might be. So even in this business, we're currently looking for a visionary to replace me because, and I do believe that has to do for many just stage of life.
Yep. Totally agree. Yep. I agree with that. So what's one piece of experience you could share with visionaries that you realized and shifted or implemented that was a game changer for you as a visionary?
Well, I do think, I had this point in time, you probably remember, where we sold the business and then we bought it back about 18 months later. And that was a turning point for how I looked at business. As a visionary, feeling inspired from a book I read called Small Giants companies that choose to be great instead of big. Didn't mean they weren't big, and you can define big in all different kinds of ways. But that's where I come back to where I was sharing earlier with my own personal experience as visionary was culture. And, I really was fortunate that I got to travel the country with the author of that book. His name's Bo Burlingham, and visit very successful companies around the country who had really unique cultures, and just get inspired by that, and then bring some of that inspiration back home to imageOne and try to create our own unique and special place to be. Because again, I felt really drawn to that philosophy, but also I knew in our business, which was commodity driven, how could we differentiate ourselves?
Right.
We couldn't compete on price. So it was going to be all about our people and how we treated the people. Plus, it just felt like the right thing to do. So, that was the main thing I focused on for like a decade,
Right.
put my heart and soul into the culture.
Well, and I know I got to witness it as I saw your employees volunteering at causes that they wanted to be a part of. And it was, I believe, your time, correct? I mean, you gave them time off, right? Which that's unheard of. And so that I'm sure attracts people that care about life, that you care about them and care about what they care about, which is unbelievable.
One of my favorite things that we did is I used to think about when we were kids, and I mean, I'm dating you and me a little bit, but when you would wake up and it was a snow day. And so you just like watch cartoons and stay in your pajamas like the greatest. Right. And I was like, but once you become adult, there's no snow day anymore.
Right.
So we decided each team member's birthday, or I'm sorry, not birthday. We decided that we would pick a day randomly for each team member.
Oh, wow.
And their person that was leading that person, the manager, would call them randomly out of the blue.
It was a snow day
the night before, and say it was called a week. What do we call it? Week Care Friday, because it was usually on a Friday. Fridays were best, and we would just say, "Don't come in tomorrow. We got you covered, and stay in your pajamas. Don't check email. Don't go run errands. Just watch cartoons." So
that's awesome. I got chills on that. So that's truth. Cheryl and I, my wife and I, were laying in bed last night, and downtown Birmingham, our houses are close, and we got quarter of an inch. So our neighbor's plow person came at 10:30, and it was really loud, but it reminded me of when we did have to plow and we got that call at 10:30 to say no school tomorrow, so I love that. I mean, that is so cool. I love that. I made a note on that. Very cool. So what's the biggest issue you're working on now as a visionary? I mean, I heard that you're looking for a replacement. I don't know if that's it, or what is an issue to me is an opportunity.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's it. And then, I think I noticed this at imageOne and any other business that I've been involved with. It's, really comes down to if you're good at executing on your widget, how can you get it out to the world? So it really comes down to sales and marketing, and your ability to get that out. That in the products that I've been involved with, that's always been the biggest challenge: is how can we be unique in the marketplace and get ourselves out there. So that's still an ongoing challenge for us, for sure. There's a lot of competition in this business, and way more than I ever thought was. But when you get into a business, you start to see it all in a much different way. So, but it's fun. You're trying to, that's all part of the game, I guess you could say.
Well, and competition isn't even that I do exactly what you do or someone else. Yeah, it's competition for time and money. Totally. I mean, that's huge. And it's funny because a mutual friend of ours, Benny Fisher, he did a kind of a tour through Michigan. I know you and Gino were part of that. He met with 5 or 6 of us. He calls, a lot of us mentors. And he's like, you old guys are funny. Hey, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm older. But he's like, you guys don't know how to market. I'm like, I don't know how to market in this day and age. And so you mentioned next generation. I think that is a huge opportunity for us to, and I'm inspired by what Gino did with EOS and what you guys are doing now to say, yeah, I'm the founder and the visionary, but in a year or two, I want to be above the line in the owner's box. Yeah. And I never would have thought about that a couple of years ago because I'm the founder and the visionary. No, it's a vision. It's not my vision, and I don't have to be the one to do it. So it's recruiting that next generation of people that can relate to the next generation of people.
Right. That's so right. Yeah. I mean, I'm 55, so I'm not, some people at 55, they're going strong. I mean, they are still like so juiced up. And I love that. That is amazing. But I just realized for myself and then back to the sales and marketing, like I'm like you, I don't know social
Right.
media, all this stuff. So, you got to find great people. And I spent, a good 2 years trying. I think we found the right person now, but we went through a couple.
Right.
And it's a tough road, but you take your lumps, as they say, and you learn it each time. And I think it gets you closer to that great person. And just to stay on that topic, because it's sort of popping in my head, I've worked with so many entrepreneurs and visionaries, as I know you have. And I think oftentimes that's one of the biggest barriers to their own growth is they give up. They feel like they're going to make another mistake on another super important person or role at the company.
Interesting.
And so they go back to their old ways or mediocrity. And I get it, it's exhausting.
Right.
But one of the places I went on my travels with Bo Burlingham was to a place called Cliff Bar, which is like an energy bar.
Yep.
And this guy started the company out of his kitchen. So it's like totally entrepreneur. This guy's a crazy visionary, 100%. Great book you could read about his whole story and about Cliff Bar. But one of the things that he realized along the way, and he had just gone through it when we met with him, was he knew that he needed to have a visionary to replace him. And he went through like 8 of them. It was like 2-year stint, 1 year, 6 months, 2 years. And he's got a team. And every time somebody leaves, you got to get back in the role, go in front of the team, and he had hundreds and hundreds and maybe 1,000 employees at that point. And you have to constantly be going and, you feel like you have your tail between your legs. You feel like a failure. You feel like you can't get it right. But somebody asked him, what advice would you give? And he said, stay with it until you find the right person, no matter how painful it is.
Right.
And I really took that to heart when we were doing some succession planning at imageOne. I tried to stay really focused on that advice. And I think it paid off.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And when you're talking about energy, I'm 61 and still have a lot of energy, but if it's around what I'm great at and love, anything less, I can't even deal with. And so I think that's a bit of a stage, but it's also not a bad thing that I'm done settling for our mediocrity. And so again, I'm probably not gonna be the one to enforce that amazing customer service and above and beyond, but I can make sure that's part of the culture.
Yeah,
and so
100%.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to touch on one other thing before we close. And I coach visionaries and I'm client number one. And the biggest thing for me is to get out of the doing and more into the being. So not in the business or in my life, but on my business or on my life. And so spirituality and just slowing down. Because for 40 years, it's just been, whether that's imposter syndrome or whatever going on in my head, I have so much to do. And so I'm learning to slow down. And so I love what you've taught and what your book talks about and your silent retreats, but it's, do nothing, which is so awesome that it's EOS going, hey, you got to do this. And then it's do nothing. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that is so needed in society. And even what I'm teaching and learning is to unscatter the chatter. And that's the chatter coming from out here, but mainly the chatter in here. So just tell us a little bit about slowing down, your silent retreat, and the do nothing, because that is so important and such a breakthrough for visionaries.
Yeah. So a little over 20 years ago, having, had a little run of very stressful and anxious times with the business. I was in my early 30s. Yeah, we all been. And, I was just looking for a way. I'm like, I can't go on like this. This is insane. I really feel thankful that I was something was telling me that at what I would consider a younger age.
Right.
Because most of the people I knew, they were dealing with the same things, but just in different ways. Anyway, I learned meditation and I found it to be useful. So, I'll come back to that in a second. But one of the things that pops in my mind around what you were saying, what was it?
Unscatter the chatter.
Yeah. So there's a great quote from an author named Annie Lamont. And she says, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try to never go there alone. Most people love that quote when I say it.
That's awesome.
So, because you can relate to it. You totally get it like in a millisecond. And that's why you don't find time to do nothing, which is simply being still, sitting in silence with your thoughts. It's just too painful. And
Right.
your ego knows that you're about to go into the danger zone. And so it figures out something for you to do.
Keeping us
Something.
safe. Right. It's keeping us safe from going into a scary place. Right.
That's right. That's right. But the fact of the matter is you have to slow down and let your mind settle and let your body settle and, let your true self catch up, your soul catch up, whatever you want to call it, however you refer to it.
Right.
And it's a practice that I think is getting more of an understanding. I still don't see people embracing it the
Right.
way I wish they would, but hey, everyone's on their own journey.
Right.
And I'm not saying you need to meditate, by the way. I think prayer is a wonderful thing to do. You can journal,
Yep.
you can do contemplation, and there are many other things or some combination, but find 20 minutes a day just to sit in silence and just catch up, like let it all settle.
Right.
I always talk about the jar with sand in it and you
Right.
got the cap on tight, you shake it, you try to see through it and it's murky. I mean, that's
Right.
your mind. You got to set that jar down and let the sand settle. And once
Love
you
it.
pick it up, then it's clear. And that is what happens when you take time to do that every day. We just are going at too fast of a pace. And when you do this, what ends up happening is you think clearer, you have better ideas, more creativity, you're more productive, you're refreshed.
Yeah.
So, it checks all the boxes. You just got to go do it, implement it in your life.
It's
And
just counterintuitive for a lot of people.
it is in this day and age. It really is. It's like go, go, go. And I mean, I think about my kids, 30 and 26 years old, and their generation. From seeing our generation,
Right.
and with the social media and everything, the next emerging entrepreneurs. What's that going to look like when they were watching Gary Vaynerchuk say, grind it out. I'm working like crazy. The guy's like hasn't even taken a shower. It seems like in days.
Right.
I think he's chilled out from what people have told me, but I think you can go hard, but make sure you do it in the appropriate amount of time to manage your energy, and make sure you find time to be still, do nothing, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and it'll pay dividends.
Well, no, I love it. And yeah, my meditation, because people ask me, it's literally 5 minutes of box breathing. So just, breathing in for 5 seconds, holding for 5 seconds, letting go for 5. And it's still not easy. And I literally have a little app, and my forum mates laugh at me that I had to get the app. I'm like, otherwise I don't do it. But it's like, it's not that hard, but it's just kind of a coach or a mentor. And then I go and this is in my jacuzzi, and this is probably 70% of my days. I start it without checking email or social media, do the box breathing, and then I do my 3-3-1, which is right now, what are 3 things that matter most to me today? What are my top 3 impactful action items? And then my I am statement. So if it were up to me, I'm appreciating today, and so it's stating it as a positive and calling it forth. And when I do that, first of all, if I don't do that, 60% of my days are great. When I spend 10 minutes doing a little bit of breathing and just kind of going through my mind to my heart, 90% of my days are great. And it's a 10-minute investment. And I still have to kind of kick my ass to do it. And I love it. So it's just, I think part of it is unlearning, for 50 years, it's been, breathing through my mouth. And what do I have to do today? And it's like, we're not going to die today. It's, well, maybe not, but it's.
Oh, that's true too.
Right.
Yeah, I actually, you prompted a couple of thoughts if we have time, but if not,
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
First, if you're struggling with a challenge, which if you're an entrepreneur and you're a visionary, I'm guessing you are struggling with the challenge usually. Getting quiet is a great way for downloads to come.
Yes.
So, you just sit and just state your problem to yourself. I'm having trouble recruiting a marketing person.
Right.
And what do I need to do? And just get quiet and don't get into your mind. Use breathing as you do or other ways to get in down below the mind and see what comes up for you. It might not come up at that moment. Sometimes it does, but it might.
But the flow is going, right?
Yeah, it might come up later in the day. Some sort of source of inspiration may arise for you. And so, that is another benefit to taking 10, 20 minutes. I suggest 20, but you do 10. I think it's great as long as somebody's doing something to settle things down. So, yeah.
It's 10 more than I used to do. Well, it's interesting.
Right?
Yeah. I wake up a lot at around 3 or 3:30, and I used to get mad. I'm like, I need my sleep and I have to get, and so now I've learned that that's when I get my downloads. And so again, and it's usually, and I'm a little, unnerved about something, and I'll just breathe, and it's amazing what comes through. And if I don't jot it down, I don't always remember it. So I try to take some notes, but it's just like I wake up with such clarity, and sometimes I go back to sleep, sometimes I don't. But now I welcome those moments.
Yeah.
That whether that's God speaking to me, my heart, whatever that may be, that's truth.
Yeah.
So to listen,
right.
to learn to listen to that, right, is huge.
Right. And trust it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. All right, cool. Any other words of wisdom before my last question for you?
Well, you're
a wise person, and I appreciate our friendship, and I've learned so much. And every time I meet with you, I get inspired. But you're so good at asking questions, and you act like you care, and I know you do care, which is wonderful. So my last question, as you know, the theme for the Visionary Forum and for this podcast is Viva La Visionary, celebrate and elevate. So what does Viva La Visionary mean to you?
I had to look up what Viva La means just to be sure I understood. Right. So long live the visionary, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I guess what came to me, and we've kind of touched on it, is, that visionaries are the big problem solvers of this world. And I think it's important for all your listeners who are visionaries out there, picking up on all this, is that know that about yourself. You are the big problem solvers. You create most things in this world. So whatever it is, your widget, whether in my business, imageOne, where it's commodity-based business, oftentimes, how could we create? What could we do differently so the market would appreciate us enough to pay us for our widgets? And that's what you all do. So know that about yourself, embrace that about yourself, and use that superpower that you have to keep making big change in the world, because you make a huge impact on all these team members that you have that are employed, and it's huge.
Right. No, I love that. And it's funny because my whole life, and as I've been interviewing more visionaries, a lot of visionaries have brought up that I've never really fit in, at class, in my family. And we were kind of made fun of. And again, not to play the victim, but it's kind of, there goes Bob again, And so it's interesting when you said our problem, I was thinking, I knew you weren't going to say this, but I'm the problem. It's like, oh no, I'm the problem solver. So it's like, listen to the whole sentence.
That's right. Well, for whatever it's worth, we can be a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so we need to have our self-awareness, because it's like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Being a visionary is a blessing and a curse. So you have to know how to manage it and become very self-aware. And when you spend time, like we talked a little bit about, in silence, you can become more self-aware. And of course, there's all kinds of work you could do around that self-awareness and inner work that's super valuable to help you be a greater visionary in the world.
Right. And what I've also realized, and I mentioned it earlier, but we're good at creating stuff, and then we hit a ceiling of complexity. And so something with structure is huge, but then sometimes if we allow the structure to take over and squelch the creativity and the magic, it's an and. We need both. And I know there's a lot of visionaries going, I'm going to blow up this structure. This sucks. It's like, okay, no, it's an and thing.
Totally.
Right. Love it. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Rob. Appreciate your friendship and appreciate your wisdom. Love you, and excited to see you again soon.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for doing this with me. I'm really grateful to you for our many, many years. I've learned so much from you way back in the initial time we spent where you coached me. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Yeah. You got me to feel good. Quick story. You got me to feel really good about changing the time of our leadership meeting so I could go running in the morning.
Right.
And that was small, but huge.
Right.
So that was something I'll never forget, among many other words of wisdom that you've given me over the years. So I'm so grateful to you and have so much love for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Have a great day, and we will talk soon.
Talk soon.
Thanks, Rob. All right, bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Viva La Visionary. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration in our guest stories. If you loved what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and share the podcast with fellow dreamers and doers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless possibilities of visionary thinking. Until then, keep dreaming big and taking action. Your vision matters.